Our next guest was at today's announcement. He has lobbied government leaders for years on the matter of suicide prevention. Natan Obed is the president of the Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami. Mr. Obed, thank you for joining us today.
Happy to be here, Michael.
Now, the money announced today, it will go towards strengthening the National Inuit Suicide Prevention Strategy. That's a program that was launched back in 2016. What exactly will these new funds be used for?
Well, we're looking at about $11 million over 2 fiscal years, so $5.5 million per year, and then we have 4 Inuit land claim regions where these funds will flow to. So we're not talking about a huge amount of funds, but a very helpful amount for ongoing work and things that we've already been working on, such as the creation of an Inuit-specific mental health first aid program and the administration and delivery of that program across Inuit Nunangat or wherever Inuit might be able to take that course. We've partnered with Kids Help Phone to provide Inuit-specific supports that can be accessed from Inuit no matter where Inuit live. So funds perhaps will be dedicated for that initiative. We've worked on child sexual abuse and forums that focus on ways in which to overcome child sexual abuse and do more to protect children in communities. We also have done events and conferences that create resilience or protective factors for Inuit youth, whether it be things like on the land training or specific events with other parts of the community, perhaps that youth are not naturally as engaged in, especially with elders. Mm-hmm. And then we also have been doing work on social determinants of health, poverty reduction, housing, food security, and the links between those areas and prevention of suicide.
Mm-hmm. So a multi-pronged approach when it comes to this strategy, and I think it's worthwhile to remind people that we know that conversations around suicide can be triggering. So throughout our conversation, there will be phone numbers that we're going to be putting up the screen that people can access help through if they need to make a phone call. But as we continue the conversation, I'm wondering if you might give us a better idea of the scope of the problem in Inuit communities. I think most Canadians go in and out of the issue only really focusing when a tragedy happens, but when it comes to suicide, the challenge is ongoing in Inuit communities.
Yes. Well, perhaps I'll start at the beginning. Inuit have not always had an elevated rate of suicide in relation to the Canadian population. It was only in the 1970s, and which corresponded with the first generation of children who really grew up with the full effects of colonization in Inuit Nunangat, whose parents had been relocated, whose parents were the first generation going to residential school, who perhaps had their dogs slaughtered, who were coerced into communities. It is the first generation of children who grew up in that time period is where we saw an increase of suicide. And that rate has increased and then held steady anywhere from around 6 times to 25 times the national average, depending upon the demographic we're looking at or the Inuit region where we might be collecting statistics. All that has led to massive challenges in our communities for mental health supports and for suicide prevention efforts. Every one of us across Inuit Nunangat or wherever Inuit live are directly affected by suicide, whether our friends, our loved ones, our immediate family. We have experiences that affect us the rest of our lives. This is just the deaths by suicide. We also have elevated rates of suicide ideation or thoughts of suicide, to the point where in a jurisdiction like Nunavut, where about 50% of the Inuit population live, self-harm is the second most common reason for RCMP call-out or the threat of self-harm. Mm-hmm. So we can see that this is something that affects all of us, and something that we are desperately looking for answers or positive work in this area.
Positive work, and as you pointed out, there's so many determinants around this, and among the things you listed were the social determinants of health, things like investment in housing, education, food security, healthcare access. Today's $11 million, that's one thing. It goes towards a suicide prevention strategy. But what about these other factors that create the stresses that lead to suicide ideation? How have your conversations been going with the federal government to address those issues?
Yeah, I have fortunate counterparts in the Prime Minister, also in Minister Haiju and Minister Miller, who are the key counterparts that we have when it comes to a federal government relationship and partnership for suicide prevention or related social issues. We have been working on trying to make transformative changes for things like infrastructure and housing, tuberculosis elimination, and we continue to make positive strides, but certainly not transformative strides yet.
So still working.
Like $845 million in this year's budget for Inuit housing is a wonderful 7-year commitment. The need is much greater, considering there's 52% overcrowding within Inuit communities. But we have made positive first steps, and there is much more work to do. But I do commend the willingness of the federal government to partner with us and to listen to us when it comes to mental health and suicide prevention, even if we could pick out on any given day a way in which the system is failing Inuit.
Natan Obed, I really appreciate the time. Thank you for this.
Thank you.